Everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. I'm back on part 2 of my Dr. Ludwig Lorbus's new atom invention, creation, amalgamation. And you see these weird, nice bubbles? I actually had some spots that just looked like glue after I painted it, and they were real smooth. And I just hit those with one of these blowtorch lighters that looks like this. They're nothing too spectacular. I think I got this one at Dollar General, and I'm not sure where I got that one. But I just hit those, and it made them bubbled. And I did that in a couple other little spots trying to get the same effect. It didn't quite work out. So let's get this thing painted up. And so to paint it up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a kind of a bigger, softer brush. And I'm going to start with a pink. I'm going to use this Cameo pink, and I'm going to water it down as I go. And I'm just going to try to get a paint coat all over this guy. And what I want to do is I want to do the undercoat in a couple different colors so that when you paint over it with some drier layers and miss some of the gaps, that it has some definitive different tones to it. So let's do this. So I just want to get this pink on it first. Lighten up some of the darker spots I couldn't get easily with the dry brush of white. If we can get it into holes, that'd be ideal. If we can't, we can't. So my thought is that this Dr. Lorbus, in siding with the evil, has got access to things that he might not normally have, and his wife is actually evil too, and she's his like assistant / she's kind of a doctor also. And in my mind, she's played by Jane Seymour, who played Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. But in your campaign, she could be whoever if you want to use her too. I think her name is I don't know what her name is. Something else. Something with an L. So he's Ludwig Lorbus and she's Linda Lorbus. And they work together. So they, using the forces of the resources they got from the forces of evil and their own scientific acumen, they have come together and invented something called Element X. Sounds good. Element X is a new element that was introduced to corporous material or necrotic material. It brings it back to life in some form. And it can be introduced to living things to create terrible mutations. And let's say that the new atom was a living creature, maybe their son, their young son, who had died, sewn to a living man. And then they were laying in a pile of bodies, discarded, and they introduced Element X and created this creature. And we'll say the Atom's name. Adam Lorbus is the name of their son. So this thing has the acuity of a small child, the anger of a bunch of murdered men, maybe some thieves and murderers and monsters. Maybe there's some vampire or some revenant. Parts in there. Gross. All right, let's get a different color. I'm going to get like a peachy kind of color maybe. Do I have a peachy kind of color? I do. This is called Sun-Kissed Peach. I'm going to squirt a little bit of that there. I'm going to get it watered down. I'm going to do the same thing. Whoa. And then I'm going to get like a light brown, like a khaki. And I'm going to do that in some spots as well. And I'm going to use a smaller brush for this. I'm going to get that same water. Get a little bit more. There we go. I'm going to do some brown with that khaki. Just like that. Okay. Right here I have a little bit of excess that's not going to dry nice. It's going to be lumpy. I'm just going to dab that with my rag. All right, so now we want to get something that we can kind of get a base coat of flesh on here. So for my flesh, what I want to do is I'm going to use that same peach color I had. I'm not going to get more. I'm going to get this peach color. I'm going to mix it with this a little bit. Create a kind of a flesh tone. I'm going to wipe a lot of it off my brush. And then I'm going to start trying to kind of paint over stuff. It doesn't have to go in all the cracks and everything, you know, just kind of get it around, because we're going to use a wash on this. It's going to give us some pretty good results, I'm thinking. Once we have a good skin tone kind of everywhere we can get it, I'm going to work around those feet a little bit more, trying to cover some more of those, get them pretty good. We'll come back and paint the base last, you know. Once you feel like you've got everything you need covered, you have some different undertones of different colors in there, what I would do is I would paint this with something that can kind of represent that. Now you could use a wash or a speed paint or whatever you have. I think I'm going to actually use a speed paint, one of my new speed paints that I don't get to use much. It's called a Warrior Skin. It's a little darker, but I do like it. I'm going to use that. I don't know if I'm going to use that everywhere, but I am going to use that. What I might do is I have a couple different skin tones of speed paint. What I might do is kind of come around here and use a couple of them. In some different spots. And then maybe dry brush it a little bit more. I want the bones sticking out to be a completely different color. That's what I know for sure. Okay. Then I'm going to add some medium to that. Let me mix this medium up a little bit. Then I get another flesh tone. This is called Crusader Skin. I think I'm just going to do a thin coat of this with some of that speed paint medium in it to thin it out and do the rest of the model. Because it's getting to be a lot longer of a paint job than I had meant it to be. So I'm just getting that. Some speed paint medium. I didn't do any parts to parts measuring there. Usually I try to do a couple drops of this and a couple drops of that and figure something out. I did not do that. And I'm just going to cover the rest of my model with this and let it go mix over the other stuff and drag it around to get some variation. And if I run out, I'll just mix whatever I have here on my tape together and make one final different color. And then I'll just be okay with that. I won't fret. And once you got it all pretty covered, I'm going to dry this off a little bit. I think that's pretty dry. I'm going to get a dry brush. I'm going to get a soft brush from the Dollar Tree. Something kind of bigger like this. I'm going to get some of that peach color. And just that peach color. I don't think I'm going to mix anything with it. Okay, something like that. And there should be tons of different variation and stuff on there. And I'll tell you what, any detail that's on this model is definitely showing through now. Let's get these bones and do them in a... I'm going to use this Mummy Robes color for it. of this pallid bone and go over those with it. Okay. Dry that off. I'm going to get a dark brown to do that. Wait a minute. I'll do that club in a dark brown. Give me a second. Ooh, shake it, shake it. Okay. Let's dry that off. Let's get fancy real quick and then we'll start the base. So I'm going to use a soft tone. I'm going to mix it up with my mixer here. We're going to use an exorbitant amount. We might need more than that. And let me get this brush here. And you want to focus on the lightest and whitest parts. You don't want to hit it everywhere. Okay. Now I'm going to do, just with a small brush, I'm going to do some detail work and then we're going to do the base and be done. So, my preference is that he would have different colored hair on the different hair spots. So I'm just going to get some different colors to do that. I'm going to get the sand golem to do some hair. We're going to focus on the hair on his first head here with that. Okay. Then we'll get around one of these back heads and kind of do that too to make it look like they might have once had hair, but they're malformed and gross. Fill that little pustule there with it too, just for fun. I'm gonna get some orange. We'll do this second head down here with orange. And there was another head somewhere on that arm, but you can't really tell it's a head anymore. So we're just going to leave that one be. Then we got this head up here. We'll do that in black. Now, we can make this really gross. I'm going to get this color Slaughter Red. And we're going to make where the bones are coming out in some different spots as if something so I'm going to use some of this red over here. I don't know how much we're going to need. We're just going to go around the bones with that and let it kind of do its thing. Like they've popped out supernaturally grossly. And then some of these little weird bumps that popped, we'll do some of that in there. Any little cracks or grooves that are things that just don't look right. Something like that. All right, sweet. Let's get that base going. So for my base, I'm going to use deep brown, which I use in all my cowboy, old western kind of stuff here. Whoops. No problem. No problem, y'all. Boop. I'm going to need a smaller brush to get in there and do some of that inside the legs area. That's my painted desert look. Let's go around the outside with black. To kind of make that magic barrier where the fantasy world ends and the real world begins. Starting with this little brush since it's already been used and I have to clean it. I'm just going around the outside here, creating a fake edge. So how would you run the new Adam? Well, I assume it would have some kind of supernatural health region, as it's constitutionally made of tons of people and parts and beings and types of animals. And it's grown exponentially beyond the realm of reasonable proportion. So it's going to have, compared to most enemies, especially in the TCD system, it's going to have an enormous hit point pool, health point pool, whatever. It's going to be hard to damage because it's only going to have so many vital organs, and they're going to be somewhere buried inside this mass. So I would say that it would have some kind of realistic damage reduction applied to it. Maybe it ignores some damage and it's harder to hit in some ways. It's not going to be particularly agile, though it will be probably strong. So I would say it moves slowly, but hits really hard. And I would say that it can't be reasoned with unless it were to be offered certain things like clothing or toys or things that it feels like it doesn't have that it wants as part of its, the fact that there are some human brains operating inside of it to some capacity. How do you introduce something like this? Well, essentially you get the good guys in a room or the heroes in a room where they can't do anything. And you'd kind of take that moment to have the bad guy come out and explain what they've done and how that the heroes are going to be the first test of this creature's might. And then the bad guy would flee and unleash the creature upon the good guys. Very cliche, very Bloodstone Manor, Baldur's Gate style. But I would say probably one of the more effective ways, and to create an enemy that you want to come after, because she has created this. After they defeat the enemy, maybe you add some of that little bit of lore I added about how it's Dr. Ludwig and Dr. Linda Lorbus's son Adam has been made into this. And he was just maybe a 3-year-old child, something like that. Add that after the fact so they really see how warped and twisted these a-holes are. And that also creates we got to chase these doctors down and stop them kind of. They're madmen. They have no scruples. They're doing this to destroy their own children. Maybe we don't put the fact that Adam was dead in those notes, though. We save that for a later little tidbit for the next creation of Dr. Ludwig and Dr. Linda Lorbus. Now, if there is actually a Dr. Ludwig or Linda Lorbus out there, there was no intentional thing here. I hope you guys know that most of the time I just make up a name that sounds good on my head, and half the time I do it on the fly. I came up with the last name Lorbus literally while heating up my glue gun. And the other stuff all just kind of came, the lore, the ideas and stuff just kind of came as I went. I was picking through parts, heating up my glue gun, making up names, and looking at pieces to make something out of. So I never set out to do anything to upset anybody. So now, because I'm thinking about it, I'm like, Lorbus sounds familiar. Maybe I got that from somewhere. But I don't think that I did. All right. So anyways, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon, and leave a comment. Please do this, because it pleases the great spirits of the algorithm. Check out the website, www.dungeon-swag.com. Check out our miniature line there. Not these miniatures, real high quality, beautiful Dungeon Swag miniatures for your TTRPGs. Use them to bolster your group's enemies. We've done boxes of gnolls, orcs, goblins, you name it, and we do that every month. And we do that mostly for people to be able to get really beautiful miniatures for a good price. Check out our Discord. There should be a link in the description. Also, a discount code for those miniatures in the description as well. So, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.